Hey. Hey, party people. Welcome to a new Black Genius Unplugged. NOIR fam, welcome. We're going to try something different today, where it's going to be myself, Uzomaka the Oracle, and the radiant, beautiful, and wonderful Lolade Yes.
Oh, goodness.
We to discuss topics, look back at some of the past Black Genius episodes, take some concepts from there, and explore how it can help us build this new world that we are in. Yes.
I'm excited to get into it with you, Uzo. So we're going to talk about some of the old, these OGs that we've had on Black Genius who've been so inspiring to all of us. And how do we pull from that? And people always ask me, how do we choose our guests? So there's a lot to talk about from the past episodes. So where do you want to start? You want to start from the top? You want to go backwards?
Backwards. Let me see what sticks out the most. What sticks out for you the most?
I don't know why Oluwaseye's name is coming up. It's coming up for me.
Prolific brother really has done a lot of great work. So what about it stuck out to you?
I keep thinking about what he said about being a good person. And, I used to have the biggest crush on Seye because, he has that smile and that beard and he just knows how to draw everybody in. And that science of you're kind of a fly on the wall in these really important spaces and you get people to trust you enough to, they invite you to photograph their most precious moments. I think that's a really significant skill that we don't put a lot of emphasis on, just relationship skills. There's a lot of especially in the entertainment world, there's a lot of, networking and branding and all of that. But what about the genuine human connection? So that was the first thing that to the top of mind for me.
Right. Yeah. With his it's definitely that, the human connection, the relationships, the trust, like you said, being able to go into those spaces, and also the storytelling, to be able to see these pictures, get a piece of the history, and be able to see and get the energy of what was happening, even though we, the people, engaging with the photographs, were not there to see it. It's almost like we were there and telling that story of what was going on. So I think that's
it reminds me of something Tiffany always talks about with the the tree in the forest, right? And how people always ask if the tree fell but nobody was there to hear it, So it's if it wasn't documented, did it happen?
Story.
Exactly. We're going to touch on Nigerian exceptionalism because I want to talk about the fact that Seye, somebody like him who has documented such important moments and such a body of work, but doesn't see the immense value in that work. It's incredible. We got to tell our own stories.
We have to. We have to start from today and work our way all the way back. Back past the history that we're taught in schools. We delve deep into that, go into the things they don't tell us, and go past slavery, past before even slavery was even a thing on the table, and really go back into our ancient past and tell the story from there and bring it all the way to today, and actually continue. What does the future look like? You know what I mean? And beginning to tell the story of the future so we know what we're walking into.
What is the first film you would want to see if you had $1 million to make a film on some historic, moment or event or person? What is the film that you're most anxious to see?
I would love to see a film about Mansa Musa.
I knew you were going to say that.
Mansa Musa, because I knew you were going to say that. That's the OG, the richest man in this world to date in 2020. Not richer than Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Bezos. I mean, he, if you equate his money to today, you talk about trillions. So I would like to see that, and the way that he was really generous with his wealth, messing up economies as he went through. Can you imagine, with his crew? Mansa Musa used to roll deep with thousands of people dipped in gold, and like, I want to see that. That's
so wait, talk about it from a finance perspective, because I remember you telling me how, like, by him traveling, he literally, crashed other people's economies. How does that work?
Yeah, it's like, I'm not really sure the exact numbers, but the way I interpret it, it's like going to the supermarket, going to Stop and Shop or Whole Foods, and your bill is $100 and you leave a tip of $100,000. Like, now that person quits.
That person can quit. People,
they're done. Everybody in the line quit. We all quit today. Who's going to work today? What happened? What happened?
That's deep. That's deep. And he's barely documented. How come like Black history, you would never hear about Mansa Musa? It's always Harriet Tubman. What's that about?
Well, Harriet Tubman, she's important, but yeah, like before there was a need for Black liberation, like Nagas, like, Mansa Musa, oh boy, they were really doing the thing.
We gotta dig up some art. We might have to write about Mansa Musa on NOIR Press. Dig up some of that, because I'm thinking about who documented his story. It's like the Europeans. The stuff that you have access to is the Europeans. It's not, it's not our stuff.
No,
which brings me to like
a shock to records. Go into meditation and go connect. Use the third eye and
let Mansa Musa tell you in meditation, where to go look for his. I know Uzo's trying to get in touch with Mansa Musa. I'm just letting y'all know, like, she is not playing. So that gold, because that there are certain currencies in the world that's about to crash. So that gold, the importance of gold. Yeah, we're talking about where we're going to invest our money. Okay, so Black Power, because we said we were going to talk about Black Power and storytelling. At least we touched on storytelling, the New World. Yes. You talked about the New World. Anybody who hasn't seen Uzo's episode of Black Genius, it was 2 weeks ago. So it's here, or we have a clip here on YouTube, but you can catch the whole video on Facebook for now. But you talked about what Alkebulan looks like, right? And this new world. And so I want to make sure that we kind of weave that in with, what is Black Power? How do we get Black Power through storytelling? Or how do we, amass and grow Black Power through storytelling and use that to manifest the new world? Who's the person that, I mean, Tiffany's coming up for me, but I'm curious if anybody else is like storytelling or their story was like
Tokini.
That's what I was thinking about. I told y'all we twins, so if you don't know, literally be thinking the same thing. Tokini she was in my head too.
Yeah, what were you thinking about Tokini?
I just can't forget about how she was like, talking to her great grandfather or whoever, and he told her, or her grandfather, and he told her the story of their family. Oh, like, can you imagine if every Black child got that? Like, what that would do in the world? Isn't that, like, things like that we take for granted. So, like, our parents who came to the States, trying to just make a buck and survive. This whole idea of like cultural preservation is like, what is that? Like, how is that important? I just need to eat. But like Tokini's in a school with all white folk, and where most of us would have been, trepidatious, we'd be a little uncomfortable. She's like, I am the descendant of kings and queens. Okay. What that does, and like literally knowing it to be fact, what that does, for a child. Yeah. So that part, her story really excited me. And I think just capturing our family histories, like that could be a project. Just like seriously. What else for you about Tokini's story?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Capturing the family, because we don't even know what kind of Mansa Musas and Harriet Tubmans and kings and queens that we all have in our lineage. You know what I mean? So yeah, and even just, I don't want to say the regular, but the grandmas, the grandpas, the aunties who, did the thing, took care of the babies, held down the family. You know what I mean? Those stories, like that's incredible. Yeah, I agree that Tokini's story was dope. For me, Tokini and the talking about luxury in Africa.
Okay.
Like, that's the story we need to tell. You know what I mean?
Beyonce and Rosa Maleombo.
Oh my goodness. Sister, if you're watching this, please, that yellow jacket. And that red jacket.
I'm off of them, those vintage pieces. I don't understand like who made Uzo, but I have been obsessing over Loza Maliombo for like 10 years. From the first image I saw of her work, when she was using like hand woven, a lot of it looks like ashoke, which I'm obsessed with. Right. So look her up. I'm sure you would have seen, the sneak peek or whatever of Beyonce wearing her clothes, but like her shit is fabulous. And now it's going to go from like 700 a piece to like 7,000.
It's okay because that Mansa Musa energy. Come on. That's
we're just going to invest. These are things that you pass down to your children.
Absolutely. That's it right there. From generations to generations. That's it.
We wear clothes, like the way we buy clothes and use clothes, when we were at the Harvard African Business Conference in February, one of the speakers, there was a panel on fashion. And one of the speakers, I forget her name right now, I think Ria, she talked about how clothing is not just, it's not just something you grab and put on. Like how you dress, like, the way you feel, these things are not disconnected. Right. And so we have a real opportunity in fashion, luxury fashion on the continent. And I love inscriptions. I love, affirmations. Yes. So we already know, like, NOIR Labs, we're going to put out our fashion line eventually. Just like hold tight for that. But I think that's going to be part of our, even short term, hyping up the fashion designers in our community and our network. You guys remember the episode with Wumi, I'm sure, and her dope pieces. But there's so many there's so many designers, there's so much talent like that on the continent, and there's a huge opportunity in fashion, luxury, just that luxury feel. I love how you talk about luxury and the cosmos and and how like Uzo's an alien, you're from another planet.
Absolutely.
You know where everything, where all the dimensions are. So when you talk about luxury, and you had me thinking about space in a way that I wasn't thinking about it before.
Yes. Yeah, luxury. That's like our birthright. That's who we are when we wake up in the morning. We're just dripping in luxury, and like you said, being able to hand those pieces down. My mantra for fashion is that we dress, they say we dress to impress. Don't worry about impressing nobody but me, myself, and my God, but really dressing to express, you know what I mean? Like, how do we feel? Like you said, how do we feel today? Because the way that you're going to walk around in like, t-shirt and jeans, it's going to be different the way you're going to hold yourself in a dress, even if it's just so slightly. So fashion, you could really fashion a nation and fashion a world through fashion. So
you can create so many jobs just looking at the woven, the opportunities in textile weaving. We're going to do all of it. We're going to do all of it.
Yes. Oof. Yeah. So many opportunities.
I'm trying to think if anybody else was doing, that we spoke to, because I want to also talk about like the commonalities across the Black geniuses. And I'm trying to think if anybody else was. So we had Wumi on fashion. We had Tokini on just art. And I think that's even a dimension we haven't touched on, African art, Black art. Now that we see the movement really picking up, and now everybody wants, Black creation. But traditionally, it's been about taking from us, right? So like we create the art, they go and duplicate it, and they profit off of it. And so all of this stuff that's like out there in, out here in the UK and across Europe, all these stolen goods.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
My goodness. Say it louder for the people in the back. Because our ancestors are not going to stop terrorizing you until you return their tombs and just get to it. Get to it.
It's true. And it's amazing because a lot of the things that we see, like, if you're back at home, that we deem as just, nothing to really, like, for example, the I call them traditional, but like the brooms, the brooms back home. For those who don't know, it's like long straw that they use, the rubber, and they wrap it together. Yes. I know I have one downstairs, run and get it. But
if you're from the Caribbean or another part of Africa and you use those brooms, please comment. If you've seen the kind of brooms you're talking about, please let us know below.
Yes. If you know what we are talking about, absolutely. Yeah, so you go to broom, you go to Nigeria, the brooms are like, like they're like nothing. You know what I mean? Maybe what my mom said. Yeah, like a quarter of a penny, like 50 naira. Like what is 50 naira? 50 naira, 300 naira one. That's a third, 33 cents. It's like 10, less than like you said, a quarter of a penny, whatever that is. It's not even like 25 cents, not even nickel. And then you come here and those same brooms are sold for over $50. You know what I mean? You go to
Wow.
the
Who's
shops
selling
and
them? Who's selling them for $50? You mean the
a lot
African
of those,
stores?
no, like a lot of those high end, you know what I mean? Home decor stores.
They
You know
got
what I
our
mean?
brooms, like
Yes,
brooms that are
and
fashion like that.
baskets, and baskets.
Okay, the
Like
baskets I've seen
trying
a
to
lot of in Brooklyn for sure. Like that
Mhm.
shit is exhausting. Get your own basket.
Get your own basket. And the
Get
baskets
your
are
own shit.
expensive. Yes. They're like $100, $200, you know what I mean? And these are baskets, and which is fine, you know what I mean, for to transact. But the problem is a small, tiny, minuscule percentage of that transaction is actually going
Those
to the people who are weaving these things. So if you're selling a broom for 25 cents, you know what I mean? That means you're making, let's say, let's hope you're making at least 20 cents, right? And then someone takes that broom and selling it for 50. Like you at least, I understand transactions and what do transportation and taxes and things like that. But can they get $1? Like, would you miss $1? And it's absolutely wild.
So how do we let's explain to the people why NOIR Labs exists, because I want to, and I'm gonna burn my sage because we came back today. My sage is right here. I just feel like I need some sage energy. But how do you fix that model? How do you fix that model of like, a broom that costs 25 cents to make, that's being sold for $50 and it's going through all these European organizations?
Exactly.
What do we do about that?
I think it's for the melanated folks to step in and begin to engage in those transactions. You know what I mean? Because if they don't, what do they care? You know what I mean? They don't care. They just care about their pockets. Oh, thanks. You're even happy that we're giving you, 30 cents for this thing that you usually sell 25 cents for, So I think it's up to us, and the thing with us too, as melanated beings, is that we have to be careful, and we have to be careful of the residue of the matrix that does not serve us. You know what I mean? And so we don't want to go into these things and just do exactly the same thing that the Europeans are doing. And now we're just, but we're Black, or we're people of color. And so we just really have to keep that in mind and really not look at it from a manufacturing, you make me this, I take this, I go, but from, as a whole, as a village, together we sit down, together we produce, and really seeing it as luxury, seeing it as a craft, you know what I mean? Really seeing it as art and respecting the artisans as such, you know what I mean? I think about like luxury lines and, a lot of people who work at these different stores, they can't afford to buy the clothes in there. Nothing. Maybe a keychain. That's an absolute problem, right? So for us to be able to, not just really, and not only pay fair wages, but really hook up people up, come in there, create infrastructure, co-create, not just come in there and move some stuff around, but co-create with the people, because the people already know what they want and what they need, and make it happen. Yeah.
So I gotta give the NOIR Labs pitch, because I want to make sure people understand how we are going to do this work. And so the first episode, if you haven't seen it, please go back and watch Black Genius 1. So I told my story, and I talked about how I started out in Vegas, moved to the UK, the US, etc. And moving to Brooklyn was the first time that I was like immersed in rich, glorious Blackness. And a nice dimension of that, rich Blackness was like the Yoruba boys in Brooklyn, right? It was like, okay, I gotta learn my language because these boys, But learning my language, learning more about the culture, and starting to go back to Nigeria, and realizing like there's such a huge opportunity in cultural preservation, and cultural like innovation in that storytelling, and that was what took me to Yale, and that's where NOIR Labs was really like formed, right? It's been many iterations, from the Yoruba School to Yoruba Cultural Institute, Yoruba Film Series, Nollywood Film Series, etc. But for me, it was like, how do we utilize film to bring people together, language to make sure they understand and they can, truly build with the people in the countries, and the regions that they want to go to and where they come from. And then how do you generate economic empowerment out of that, right? How do you bring the diaspora back forcefully into the continent, infusing not just our dollars and our, our pounds and whatever, and our gold and our Bitcoin, but also our values, our experiences, right? So somebody who's living in poverty and, has to just sell a broom for 25 cents to eat, that's his priority, right? And so if there's nobody around him that's like, here's what your value should be, right? Here's how to be a good person. When we look at crime and whatnot on the continent, the big narrative, people always talking about how, what they thought of Africa is different from what they actually found when they got there. The narrative is the violence, the poverty, the crime, right? It's not safe if you go to, well, people are going to commit crimes where there's nothing for them to eat otherwise, right? If they've tried every other avenue. So how can the diaspora not just play a role in investing money, but investing values, culture, that messaging? And it's not to say that we don't have dope values back home. So I'm really talking about places like, Lagos, like the cities where it's more like do or die. But, when you come away from the cities a little bit, it becomes more family focused. It becomes more, community, village, etc., clan focused. So I'm always thinking like, how can we pull out these traditional African values that a lot of us in the diaspora have been able to hold on to and build on, from not having to worry about where our food is going to come from as much, right? And then take that, intermingle, that relationship and package something new. Create something new that is a marriage of, our African tradition and like this new age wisdom that we've been able to, acquire. What are you thinking?
I think it's like what we mentioned before, and that with the storytelling, when you're able to, that's how people learn. That's as children, that's as grown-ups, we learn through the stories. Like this is what you do, this is what you don't do, this is what works, this is the consequence of what, and like you said, if you're focused on just the survival, what is somebody going to come and be like, oh, do this, and that? Nobody cares. Like, run me my money. You know what I mean? So, but if you tell the story, if you, have the TV shows, the movies, the fashion, the billboards, I used to always say, like, I would love to, like, I remember when I used to work in Bankhead in Atlanta. If anybody knows Bankhead.
Work in Atlanta back in the day.
Oh, where that's Bankhead is okay. So at the time, this is like early 2000s, like Bankhead was rough. Like I used to take the bus into work and I used to just be depressed, just sitting in the bus ride, heading to work. And it was just depressing. And what you would see on like the billboards was always just like, cigarettes, this, that, just all, then just it was just so, so I used to imagine.
Right? So people who are watching who don't get the connection, it's not accidental that you have cigarette and liquor, all those types of ads in Black neighborhoods. There's an intentionality behind that where it's like, we want these people, high and drunk and, we want them to spend all their money on sneakers because they can't buy the land. Because even though we didn't give them the 40 acres, like, they could put their money together and buy their own 40 acres. They're not going to do that if we keep throwing them all these things and then giving them a little bit to eat off of.
Right, exactly. And making that the aspiration. Like you're not aspiring to buy land. We're not, you know what I mean? We're aspiring to feel as if we have made it. Yeah, so I used to just imagine, I was like, and it's not even like the good liquor commercials. It's not even like the sexy ones that you like see in Vogue, you know what I mean? Like Cavassier or something. It's like, it's just, whatever. And I was just imagine like a bright yellow, billboard with just like, a mother and her child hugging, or a family or grandparents. And they're just smiling and just simple. That's it. Like you would see that and you would just the vibration off of it. And so once again, it's the storytelling. I think that's, where we come in with NOIR Labs and NOIR Press to be able to have these conversations, you know what I mean? And to be able to show the news, write the content, explore these concepts that we as the people have to do. We can't expect anybody else to be like, oh, here's a great concept that can open your mind and, allow you to explore different aspects of yourself and grow and evolve as a human being. We have to do that for ourselves.
So, and what you're saying about doing that for ourselves, right? NOIR Labs is obviously 100% Black women owned and operated. Right. And will always be, I'm going to endeavor to say. But okay, this moment that we're in, I haven't been watching the news. We filter in news into our content channel on Slack, and that's how I get my news, right? And so it's mostly the good and the aspirational. But, with everything that was happening with, the movement, marching, Black Lives Matter, et cetera, there's been a great effort on the part of non-Black allies to, to step up and speak up and even to put their money where their mouth is. Right? I'm curious what you think about that dynamic, from that frame, that mind frame of, let's do our own. Can the two kind of, coexist?
Yeah. You mean like white folks wanting to, give, run the money, run it. Run it, run it with detachment. And that's the thing that's needed. Don't run it and then tell me what to know. There has to be detachment. And I think that it might have to be filtered. Some things can go direct and some things have to be filtered. There might be some organizations that's able to collect this now money, and then they're able to turn around and distribute it in a way that is detached, that maybe some white folks cannot do, which is fine, but we definitely bring the currency, and then we take that currency and we allow it to circulate and we allow it to grow. But come up off of that. It's stolen money anyway. So
all reparations,
all reparations, clean your karma. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, talk about that. I love when you always talk about white underdevelopment. What is white underdevelopment?
White underdevelopment are these aspects of the matrix, these aspects of, white folks as a whole that we have learned, just part of their value system. It's interesting. Onyeka sent this thing, and it had like the value. It was written like in the 60s, 80s, the values of like different race groups.
I gotta pull it
Go
up.
ahead. Go ahead.
It was good shit. I gotta turn my phone back on for this one.
It was really interesting. And one of the things that it says is like, just sociology speaking, I'm not sure, but white folks as a whole, as a culture, their value system is on the individual. So it's about me, it's about, and that is out of balance. It doesn't work. We see it in this world, you know what I mean? Whereas, other people of color, Black folk, indigenous people of the Americas, Asian folk, our value system is, although it's still different within those categories, those aspects, their main thing is about collective, the group, the family, the whole, which is important for us to really thrive. So white underdevelopment are those things that we have been programmed with in the matrix that we want to call, sometimes we call it white supremacy. You know what I mean? But what is supreme about this? We got to call it what it is. There's nothing supreme about, you know what I mean? Stealing land, paying you nothing on the dollar. You got to work 70 hours to pay your rent. Childcare is $1 million. You know what I mean? Like the food you're eating is absolute garbage. Like that is not, and so capitalism, we call it white supremacy, and that's also part of the mind game, because at the end of the day, we still think that way of thinking is supreme. So when we talk about white, So when we talk about white underdevelopment, we have to rename these things and understand it is an underdevelopment. These things, they're not. It's like children.
They're no good. Okay. So what Onyeka sent is we might have to post it on our Instagram or something.
Yeah,
it's the philosophical aspects of cultural difference, developed by Edwin J. Nichols, PhD. Right. And so what he did is he took out some groupings. So you have the European and the Euro-American. Then you have the African American, Hispanics, Arabs. Then you have the Asian American, Polynesian, and then they have the Native American. And so what Uzo's referencing is their axiology, their highest value lies in the object or the acquisition of the object.
Ooh.
Their highest value. This is European, Euro-American. This is Edwin J. Nichols' perspective. I'm just a messenger. And then, Africans, African Americans, Hispanics, Arabs, our highest value lies in the interpersonal relationships between persons.
Mm-hmm.
For Asians, Asian Americans, Polynesians, their highest value is in the cohesiveness of the group. And for Native Americans, their highest value lies in the oneness with the great spirit.
Yes, oneness with the divine.
We're going to have to, I'm curious what you guys think, those of you who are listening, what you think about this. Okay, so Martine is saying Dr. DeGray talks about this too. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but, white underdevelopment. So we came to that because we were talking about, I'm trying to remember, we talked about Atlanta and the storytelling and what NOIR Labs is working to do. So I'll just take it back to that a bit. So for us, the first phase is the media, the content, right? And right now that's NOIR Press and eventually NOIR Fest. So the Traveling Film Festival, the Virtual Film Festival. And so we just want to share these stories because Black folks are already changing the world. We are already liberating ourselves.
Yes.
We are already building dope shit. We're already building Wakanda all over the place, right? There's already so many examples of great interpersonal relationships and great business partnerships and, returning to Africa successfully. All of the good stuff is already happening. Ultimately, that stuff needs to happen at a greater scale, right? So we need to scale that kind of, positivity. And how do you scale it? Well, you put that message out there. We're already being programmed, right? When we scroll through Facebook, now all the information is coming out about how Facebook manipulates the feed and TikTok and all these people, right? And how the algorithm is only as smart as the last white boy who wrote it, right? How do we program ourselves, reprogram ourselves with the good shit, the stuff that we actually, should be believing? That we are powerful, that we are capable, that this earth belongs to us. We're the original people. There's nothing we cannot do, right? And so our messaging, so when we talk about NOIR Fest and it's like, aspirational content, the finest aspirational Black films, what that word aspirational means to me is something that you actually would want to experience. You know? Collective visualization. Anybody who listens to Deepak Chopra and Oprah and all these people, doing work on visualization, law of attraction, right? It's about visualizing what you want and knowing what it feels like. And the more you see that and feel that, the closer you come to that outcome that you desire. That's just the way it's just scientific. It's basic, basic science. We are all matter. And we're attracting the matter that we want out in the world based on what we are perceiving, believing, expecting, right? And when we watch people get shot left and right on The Wire, I'm gonna start calling out some, I had to watch The Wire. I'm still traumatized by that.
I can't do it.
Killing Black characters so much that every episode, like 4 Black people gotta die, and we gotta not. They don't just die. We gotta watch the blood trickle out from their body for like a whole 5 minutes. One of my friends, Benga, was in that show, and there's a scene where he kills somebody, I think. And the violence, the rage. Why do we need that? I love you, Benga. I really do. But like, The Wire traumatized me. Why do we need that? Why? What does that add to our lives? What are these horror stories? What does it add to our lives? Afraid? Teaching everybody how to be afraid all the time?
Right.
How is that liberating?
It's
so NOIR Fest, NOIR Press. Liberating aspirational content that makes you say, oh, we are the shit. I didn't realize we were this much of the shit. I'm sorry for those of y'all who brought your kids to watch. I can't. This is one of those times. It's going to be a little cursey. Forgive me. We might have to do a censored version. But listen, guys, like, the original people were created in the Garden of Eden on the continent in the motherland, right? And everybody else was like, oh my God, look how those people are living it up. They got food like for days. They got gold. And like, how are they living so good? Let's go get that. And when because like we just said, their highest value is the object, right?
Right.
So you be up to people and you're like, oh, let me get some of that land. There's a line that I read in one of these, history books that talked about South Africa and how, South Africa clearly inhabited by so many different tribes,
Mhm.
or before the Boers came. And the way that the historian described it, it was like these Europeans came, and they started setting up shop, and then all of a sudden the natives got upset.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Like,
oh my goodness.
there was nobody there. Yeah, there was some little brown people, but they're not real people.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we went over there and we just started farming. And, some of them would they went and they actually struck deals with the locals, right? You didn't really have a choice, but after a while, you start encroaching more and more. You want more and more land. You just want more space. You want to bring more people.
And if the number one object is the thing, the number one value is the thing, then forget your life.
Forget your life.
Your life is worth this. Exactly.
I'll just kill you. And that's what we have adopted as African people. That is not us.
That's that white underdevelopment.
That's not us. That's not how our DNA was designed. That's not how God created us. And there was, I'm going to get a little controversial. Nick Cannon, that whole thing. Did you see the whole thing with Nick Cannon?
I have. I heard a little bit about it. Excuse me 1 second. My daughter is over here playing. Let me.
Hi, Praz. This is what Black mommy CEO life is like. Okay. Our children are part of our organizations, and that's just how it is. Everybody was somebody's child once.
That's
the
it.
Children are
That's
always
it.
welcome.
And it takes a village. It takes a whole village, including you guys.
Thank you, all the villagers that have kept me and my daughter together. Because Lord, it is not easy. Look at what we're doing. Like this type of work, this type of manifestation does not come. This is not. Nobody rolls out the red carpet when you say, "I want to change the world." Everybody's like, now. So doing all of this work and trying to nurture children, because this is a calling. I said to you this week, my favorite quotes from Pastor Festus. Shout out to ALCC. God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called. And so God
that.
your heart, and you're like terrified because you're like, how am I supposed to do that? Like that's bigger than me. So am I worthy? Am I capable? And then God just like sees you through.
That's it.
So, I'm trying to remember where we got to that from. Okay, mommy.
Because if God says it,
we're talking about Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon.
What you heard about the story?
So what I heard, right? So going through, I get my news through the YouTubes, and they're just like, oh, Nick Cannon, anti-Semitic or whatever. So I'm cracking up because I already know, because I seen him on the show with the brother Riz, I believe his name is. And they're just speaking the truth. They're just speaking the truth. So I guess,
You think it's the truth?
So I don't know, but I don't know what he said. What did he say? Let me ask that first. But I know like he was probably up there like just
throwing everybody. Listen, I didn't hear the whole thing. I didn't hear the whole thing, but what I saw a quote in an article that was like, he was talking about, see, they kind of take things out of context. So I can't, can't be 1,000% clear, but basically the paragraph is like, he's talking about how these people lived in caves and they didn't have anything. And then, that's how they became wired to take and to harm others, because it was like, you don't have anything. And I mean, that's like scientific. Like if you really don't have anything, like eventually you stop being nice, because it's like survival, because you either die of starvation or, you kill somebody you eat, and so that imbalance. So that was what the quote reference was like, that white underdevelopment, this idea that like you have to take to exist, and so that now was juxtaposed to ideas of anti-Semitism. Because in the quote that I saw, it didn't say anything about Jews. It didn't even actually specify, I don't think it specified white, well, maybe he did talk about Europeans, right? And so there's a lot of people, there's a lot of scientists who have given that history. Sheikh Anta Diop, for one, if you look at Ivan Van Sertima's work, like there's so many people who've already researched this. So when you come in, you call somebody like Nick Cannon crazy. There was somebody on Facebook who was going in about, how stupid he was. And I'm like, have you read the history?
Right.
That like, but of course, we love all people, right? So this idea of like being anti-Jew, I read the article and I was like, I don't see anything about Jews in here. How is this anti-Semitic? Right. And it seems like everything that you say about Jews is anti-Semitic. That's the way I'm starting to perceive the definition of the term.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, one thing I know is that he couldn't have said anything that that crazy. You know what I mean? When I saw like that, I was just like, that's just is these. You know how they do. But to talk about, yeah, being that's like you said, that's science. Like they talk about that being from the Caucasus Mountains. They talk about the melanin. You know what I mean? Why that's closest to that has a lot of the sunlight and the heat. While our melanin is darker. People in the mountains, they have straighter hair to protect their neck, keep them cold. While our hair stands up from the top of our head. So it's just I don't know. I don't have no comments, and that's why just forget their media. Like it's just whatever. If it doesn't fit what they want, this narrative, this thing, and you're on their media, you have a large, kind of investment in there. You can't. You just can't.
I think the most important thing for me, especially with the whole idea of, anti-Blackness, anti-Semitism, LGBTQ, whatever, I think it's just important to have multiple perspectives on a topic. You know what I mean? Like everybody should be able to decide what they think for themselves, Yeah. And so if you feel a way about something, establish the evidence. Like, let the evidence be established. What the problem is with media currently is like, they don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to formulate an opinion.
And that's why it's called programming.
It's programming. Every hour on the hour, same thing. CNN, every hour on the hour. And you're literally, but imagine if the messages that were coming into you every hour on the hour was like, you're glorious, you're powerful, you're beautiful, there's nothing you can't do, you're rich,
we'll be flying. We'll just be literally flying in this thing.
We would be buzzing around all the time, like
literally.
We'd just be manifesting like, okay, here's a house. Here's a house for you.
Ooh.
House for you.
On some trap music.
Baby's here. That's the kind of programming you need, party people. It's not about like, and a lot of the folks who are watching, I know already know what we're talking about, and that's why they're supporting what we do. And I'm just going to tell y'all again, like I always do, spread this message, share this video with somebody and tell us what you want to hear more about. If you guys have any questions and thoughts on previous guests, we need to get back to, we only have 17 minutes left. We just been going. Okay, I'm making sure we touch on all the topics we promised to touch on, but I wanted to answer, people asked me about, always ask me about Black Genius, like how do you choose a Black genius, right? And so even the purpose of this, the platform Black Genius, when we had an event at Yale last fall, our first like NOIR Fest event, and we had a collection of films, right, and art and digital art that we were sharing with our audience there. And we had received a ton of submissions. We reviewed the submissions, chosen the best ones, and really came out with some just rich, gorgeous films, art, etc. And then we needed a name for the collection. It was like, how do you reference this, right? It's not just like, African films. It's like, this exemplifies something. Right. And that was how Black Glory came to me. It was like, these images just reinforce to you the glory of Blackness. You don't even have to watch the whole film. Just for those of you guys who don't know, we showed To Be Free by Adepero Douye. We showed Peau de Chagrin by Baloji from Congo. I think I've talked about it in the past. Look up Yale Africa Film Festival. It's going to be the fastest way to get the titles, the spelling of the title. And then the third one was White Collar Black by Joseph. And just like the cinematography be like, so again, I'm off on a tangent, but Black Glory, right? And we were like, okay, we're gonna have a podcast. We want to be in dialogue with the community. Let's get people talking about, identity and Blackness. Because my thing is always like, how do we bring Black people together? Caribbean, and that's Caribbean, African American. Like we're so divided. When you put us all in the same room, like we're gonna gravitate towards the people that come from where we come from, and then we're gonna have like these little, negative things to say or these negative feelings about other types of Black people based on again the programming, the messages we've been getting. Right? Once you start to actually interact with those people, just like with any other form of prejudice, when you start to actually interact with individuals and build, meaningful, authentic relationships, you're no longer judging all Caribbean people according to, or all African people according to whatever stereotype has been fed to you.
Right.
And so we wanted to start to have that conversation. And then, I heard the Andre 2000, 3000 interview, and it was really vulnerable. And that was how I decided to do like one-on-ones. And then the first guest that we had, Alex Sado, read about him on our site, Alliance for Africa's Intelligence, one of my favorite people. Just talking to him and pointing out his story, I was like, this guy is such a genius. And I'm like, all these people, like, and then I realized how much genius we had around us that was not being tapped into, it was not being celebrated. And so I just wanted to, have conversations with people who got me excited, inspired, people who I look at and I'm like, oh my God, like you've given your whole life to this thing, even if people didn't understand what it was, or it didn't make you a lot of money, but it was meaningful. It was glorious. It impacted lives. It's changing the world, and like, you're just like this humble servant. There's a lot of people doing dope shit that really think that like they are God, they're the next coming, But these people, are all, in my opinion, just humble servants of God, like just doing God's work. And so that's how we kind of find and identify. And for me, it's just always been a connection. But I want to make sure that like the idea of Black genius is not monopolized by just my perspective. So that's why Uzo is going to host some episodes. We're going to host some episodes and just like explore this breadth of what Black genius is and can be, And so that's how this platform was created. And for us, it's great to be able to come out here and do a live and just talk to the community and just talk to the people, and hear from you guys and know like what you're going through, what you're feeling, what you're struggling with, and how, the Black genius in our community can help you solve some of those, problems, questions, etc. So I wanted to make sure I answered that.
That's a great answer, and it's so needed, because when you think of genius, you just think of like Einstein. So Black genius is just like it's incredible, you know what I mean? Because we to really intentionally highlight the genius within our community, and the genius as not just the person, because like you said, a lot of the Black geniuses is like humble, they're just doing God's work, and the genius in the work, the genius in the surrender,
it comes naturally. It comes naturally to you when it's what you're meant to be doing, and it's beautiful, easy. I mean, it's not, everything doesn't fall in place one time, but it feels easier than everything else, right?
Yeah,
because I could totally go and work, in somebody's corporate office and like run programs or projects for them and make a lot of money. But that every morning, me trying to get out of bed would be torture to go and do that. Right. So this is actually as difficult as this is to give up that security, to come out here and do this adventure, that God has called me to do. It's 1,000 times easier than getting up and going to somebody's job and wanting to shoot myself at the end of the day. So, I'll take this. Thank you.
It's real. Because that's God's work. You're not going to feel comfortable doing nothing else. Nothing else. Because that knock is just going to keep knocking. Yes. And like Lolade said, like we want to hear from you guys. We want, send us the emails, come in the lives, drop some comments in the chats, just let us know what you're thinking, any questions, just the whole thing. We want this to really be a tribal situation, a community thing.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what, those of you guys watching, my teen, what's up? Olawale, thank you for handling my light work. Somebody was putting some inappropriate comments, like they don't have a mother. So Wale put them down. Thank you for that. I want to hear from you guys, like, what do you dream of? What is your end game, your North Star? Where do you want to be, 50 years from now? How do we start to manifest that? And when you come back, I want you to answer. Bring her on the show. If she's gonna interrupt, she's gonna have to do some work.
I know some work. That's what she's gonna have to. She wants to be on here. Maybe we need to do a Black Genius Kids. And then I had to kick her out. She wanted to stay, but she's making too much noise. She had to go now.
Your grandmother.
No, like my great aunt.
No, the kids
like
come.
These kids, they're old souls off rip. It's crazy. Off rip. But what was the question? Excuse me, you guys. Excuse me, Lolade.
No, I was asking, everybody what their dreams are, like what their end game is. What is the thing? What is the life that you would like to manifest? And even if it's just to get you thinking, I said 50 years from now, that's a long time. But like, all these like books about influential people, whatever, they'll talk about the example of like your funeral and like what do you want people to say about you, or what do you want to have achieved, or because when people are on their deathbed, most of them say like they wish they had worked less or they spent more time with
the kids,
right? So I think like we live according to the rules, we live according to like that scarcity mindset, but it's important to dream because you could just stay miserable, in your run-of-the-mill life that, you feel like it's how it's gonna pay the bills and it's how you're gonna be able to like, fit in. Or you could dream and you could inch closer and closer to that dream, And there's an individual.
The dream is like the first step. Yeah. That's you're hitting on a really good point, that the collective dream as well as the individual dream. Because the collective dream is just as important, and it goes back to the programming, you know what I mean? But I don't want to get off tangent just yet, off the exit. But yeah, like the dream is like it's the first step.
How do we cultivate the dream? Finish your thought, and then
I think it's asking the question. I know in the past when I used to ask people like, "Yo, what is your utopia?" Like without, especially with the whole, rah, this is happening, which is real. It's a reality in our matrix at the now time. But if you step back from that and you say, okay, well, what if you didn't have police brutality, if you didn't have, all these isms and lisms and all the things, then what would it look like? And people have a difficult time answering that, at least in the past. Hopefully it's gotten better. So that's the question to you guys, the NOIR family, people who are watching, like, what's utopia for you? You know what I mean? And not to get into, there's no such thing as a utopia. No, that's once again the programming, and that's the matrix, right? and I think it's important for us to start to identify these viruses and these adwares that's in our operating system.
Shots fired.
Because that's what it is. We need some what do you call it, malware bites, or some type of antivirus. Not I don't want to name the other major ones because all they do is put viruses on your junk, and that's a lot of stuff now. We think we're doing even better, but it's still just another virus.
Oh my god. A whole dissertation,
man. So yeah, I think I like that you brought up the collective consciousness, because that's really that's like our weakness and our strength at the same time as melanated folks, as Black folk, because our collective consciousness is like this. They talk about like the Australian Aborigines who still, I don't know, like to exactly this day, but the very recent past still had the collective dream where they'll be able to dream and share one dream. And so as melanated folks, we really have that power to really connect through our melanin, and our melanin not just being through like our skin, the brownness, that's part of our melanin, but people also have melanin in their brains and our pineal glands and our, all over our organs. So melanin is on the outside and the inside, but even for us, most melanated on the outside and the inside, our melanin is deactivated. For many of us, it's running at a very low speed.
0.01%.
Really, for real.
The firmware needs to be upgraded.
Exactly. It really does.
Let's remind the people, because I know we talked about this on your episode, but how do you upgrade the firmware? How do you get the viruses out? People need to be reminded. We're gonna program the folk. How do we?
That's real.
How do we stay ready and true?
it's so many things that like at the same time. But to touch on one of the things that you mentioned, it's the dream, it's the thoughts, it's the programming. What are you filling your head with? You know what I mean? If all day you're watching gore, death, that's gonna be in your head. That's in your mind. That's what you expect. You know what I mean? And that they've done a good job with us with that, because
Low
it's just
vibration.
all there we go. Bingo, low vibration, you know what I
So we
mean?
need to feed
Woo.
ourselves positive images
Yes,
and good news
yes.
for
Positive
positive
stuff.
communication.
Because as humans, we still, the stuff that we're watching, and we still, our subconscious still doesn't, can't tell the difference in terms of reality and not. You know what I mean? It's like when you read a book and somebody dies and you're boohoo crying. Like, yeah, you create a relationship with this book. Like, it's not even real. But we hear,
But it's
you know what I mean?
connection.
It's
The other day,
connection.
Isma's gonna kill me. The other day we were talking and she was crying, and I was like, "What's wrong?" Because one of her favorite characters died. Like she lost
Oh,
it, right? But it's
yeah.
real. Like
It's
we
real,
are
right?
the
Right.
stories we. Is she coming for me?
Sorry, today. It's for
The
the
stories really impact. There's science out there that will share
yes,
it in the near future, that talks about how like we literally don't know the difference. Like when you
yeah,
watch a movie, like your biology, your nervous system is responding the same way that it would if it actually was happening to some
yeah,
extent, right?
yeah,
And so
exactly.
like put your body through all these same emotions and vibrations, and then like that thing hasn't even happened,
Yeah,
Like, you could keep the
yeah,
vibration, keep the energy positive, focused on what you actually want, then
yes.
it's going to actually manifest eventually. We have 3 minutes
Woo!
left. I don't know what else
Woo!
we should
Good
share
idea.
with the people. I want to shout out Rosa. Thank you, Rosa, for your comment.
Yes,
Because freedom of expression and expansion. I love it. I love it.
yes,
I love it. Yes, speak your voice. Michelle, when
yes,
Michelle was on here, we talked about mental health, and she said the importance of just speaking what you
yeah,
truly feel, like being able to connect with, like, this is what I actually want. This is what I
yes,
actually love. Right. So, one thing I'll tell you is like, really pay attention to like, what feels good.
yeah.
How do things feel?
Body.
Something makes you uncomfortable, say that or get away from it. Don't
Mhm.
embrace the pain. Just like be in touch with what feels good and multiply the good.
Yes. And giving yourself permission to do so. I think for a lot of us, it's the permission. So if you guys need permission, here we are. We're giving you permission. We're giving ourselves permission. Giving myself, Lolade, all you guys out
Yes.
there permission to really be like,
Okay.
yo, this is what I want. Like, and it be okay. Oh, there we go. Big hug, right?
Big hug. You Black
Yes.
is having an easy week.
Yes.
We love you. Big hug. Hug
Big
yourself.
hug. That's
Give
real.
yourself
That's
permission.
so
You deserve it.
real.
You deserve
Yes.
it. No matter how, no matter how wild
Yes.
it is, you deserve it.
That's absolute. That's the truth. We deserve the good because we're God's children. We're the children of the Son, the Most High. Like we deserve all of this, and the programming says otherwise. So yeah, just the programming, what we put in our bodies, what we consume with our minds, what we consume in terms of our food. You know what I mean? Doing the best we can to be intentional with our food, with our thoughts, and most importantly, like our thoughts. I think that's number one because that's the one thing. It doesn't matter if you have 0.05 cents in your pocket, you can control your thoughts, and it's a practice. It's nothing that you wake up one day and just do, but it's really an intentional practice. It's like if you're gonna make up a story, like they say, if you're gonna make up a story, make up a good one. It's okay. Make up a good one. And you'll be surprised. You know what I mean? So yeah.
We have 1 minute left, and I'm thinking about the thing that I would love to leave you guys with. And I think it really is you deserve it. Just
Yes.
like remember that for the next, week. So next week we have the town hall. We want y'all to come in conversation. I mentioned earlier how passionate I am about bringing, we are both, me and Uzo, about bringing the Black diaspora together. And in order for that to happen, we got to start having this conversation. We got to talk about like the tension and the disorder. Because Black Lives Matter is great, organization on the continent is great, South America is great, but what if we were all working together? What if we were all supporting
Yes.
each other? And so it's one thing to like, recognize and acknowledge the next Black person next to you and wherever they might be from, but it's another thing to like really be able to build a Black folk from across the globe, to push us into this new world. So if you want to be on the panel, we're going to have about 6 seats for the town hall next week. The town hall is going to be a new monthly thing we're going to do, because I know that like y'all are like, okay, Black Genius is great, but like, what about the real issues that are happening? So like, let's talk about that, you know? And so we want to hear from you what topics you would like to see us cover in future town halls. We've been talking about Black femininity and in relationships. So that's going to be a topic we're going to talk about very soon. From the cosmic side, how do you like manifest the right, you know, experience? But yeah, next week, bridging the gap, healing the bonds, healing the tensions between Africans, African Americans, Caribbean folk. Join us for that conversation. We look forward to meeting you. Have a blessed week, and remember, you deserve it.
Yes. Bye.